Recording in.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thursday at Namaste Village. Apparently, it's raining, so that may be the reason why not everyone is sitting here. Maybe some people are in their rooms watching it on Zoom, and that's fine, as are many of you watching now. So Scott Grace thought he would begin our session this morning with a recruitment video. So just in case any of you are feeling the draw to join us, this is going to be your opportunity to, it's like going to a recruitment station and being encouraged to join. So Scott, come on up.
James, we want to hear your story about how this all began. That would be a good idea for recruitment.
Okay.
Well, I was recruited, this is my 11th day here, and this is the story of how I got here. Start spreading the news. I've left USA. I want to be a part of it in Mexico. These Birkenstock shoes are longing to play right in the very heart of it in Mexico. I want to wake up in a village called Ajijic to find siestas each day where rent is more cheap, much more. Hello, namaste, where I eat, love, and pray. I am so grateful here with you in Namaste. If I could make it there, I'll make it anywhere. I've moved my whole juicy life to Mexico. Mexico. Travel light and bring a passport. The water is fine.
All right, thank you. Well, it is just a delight to have you here and all the lovely energy you bring. And everyone brings that same loving energy because that's what we do here.
It was such a coincidence that the chirping sparrows were talking about who was there in the beginning and how did it get started, and here this is what you're talking about.
Well, I tell you what, I'll give a real brief description because we're almost at our 5-year celebration. On December 1st, it will be officially 5 years that we moved into the property. I originally moved here 9 years ago and bought a little house, but then after about a year, I heard news from my daughter that I was going to be a grandfather. Now, those of you who are here know the result of that because that little child has been running all over the place. She's 7 now. And so I went back to Portland. I rented my house, and then I decided, well, about a month later, I had to come back to lead a retreat, but I couldn't stay at my house. So I looked for a B&B somewhere, and I stayed in that room right there where Bonnie's staying in right now. And I loved this place. I was looking around thinking, this is beautiful. There were only 11 apartments at that time, but what a spiritual center this could make. And so I spoke to Skip, who had built all of this, and I just said, if you have any interest in ever selling this, please let me know, because this could be such a beautiful, light, bright center. And he thought about it, but he wasn't quite ready. So I just forgot about it. About 2 years later, when I'm still back in Portland, maybe a year and a half, I heard that Skip had passed away. And I knew he had 3 adult kids back in Florida, that they were going to probably want to get rid of this place. They didn't need the hassle of a big property in Mexico. So once again, didn't think about it until 5 years ago, right about now. I came back. I thought I would just live at my house, but then I went up to visit Jai at this beautiful villa that he and Bonnie were building. And I was just walking back down, and I thought, I'm going to walk by that place where it was called Angel Flores Guest House at the time. I'm going to walk by there and just see. And I couldn't believe it. After 2 or 2.5 years, there was still a for sale sign. And it turned out that Todd, who was Skip's son, he was staying here at the time. He on that very day had said, you know who we need to find? We need to find that guy who tried to buy it from Dad like 3 years ago. Ding dong, guess who rang the doorbell? Me. It was effortless, as grace always is. Grace is effortless. If we just give ourselves to it, if we just throw ourselves into that current and let it take us to that infinite ocean of grace, it's easy, simple, it happens. And I'm sure if Scott were to tell this story, or anyone else here to tell their story, it would be very similar. Effortless grace, living in the yes, living in this moment, having one goal. The goal isn't to live in community. The goal isn't just to be here at Namaste. The goal is to be awake to love's presence, to awaken to love's presence, which is always present. It's always here. Now I need to come to the point where I am here with that love. I am awake within that experience. That's the only reason we join. And sure, we all have our story. Jeff's the only one here that was here on day one. You know, we had 11 tiny apartments at the beginning. Within 2.5 years, we had 41 houses or apartments as we built the casitas and built the apartments. It just was. Oh, and one quick story, because Ravi's pointing at Bethel. So Bethel back then, now this is throwing yourself into the current. The current. Here's what she did. She heard, because I had put out something at that time saying, I found this amazing place. We're going to see what we can do. We're going to try and start this beautiful, loving community in Ajijic. And Beth heard that and said, I'm going. So she didn't wait. She said to her husband, we're moving to Mexico. And he said, huh? What do you mean? No, I'm not moving to Mexico. No, you're moving to Mexico. I'm telling you right now. James Twyman is starting a community there, and we're going. So she came, and guess what? I was gone. I wasn't even here because Skip wasn't ready to sell. I went back to Portland. I must have been in Portland for another 2.5 years. But Bethel found herself here. She actually, didn't you come here? And you spoke to Skip, and Skip said, no, it's not happening. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna find another place. So she bought a place, and then lo and behold, 2.5 years later, here we were. So I honor your commitment, and I honor the commitment of all of you and all of you, because it's not about place, it's not about space, it's about grace. That's right. See, Scott's, he inspires me. I got to get my rhyme on. Think about that. It's not about space. It's not about place. It's about grace. And the grace that draws us, the grace that pulls us together to join, to be. So that single goal that we have and find within us. I want to talk about that because I was reading in the non-dual universe this morning and realized that we all have the same goal. Each and every single one of us, at the very core of our being, there is really only one goal. So let's hear about that. Because if we can know that there's really only one goal and give ourselves to that, this becomes very simple. Here we go. Your only goal now is to be perfectly certain that there is no alternative to the will of God. We can stop right there. There is no alternative to God's will. And for you to become completely certain, to have complete certainty about that, that's the only goal. Because when that happens, when you have that certainty, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. There is no alternative to the will of God. It doesn't matter what shakes around you, what eruptions are going on around you. There is no alternative to the love of God, to the peace of God, to the reality of love. No alternative. And that's the fact. When we surrender into that fact, this becomes very simple. So here we go again. Your only goal now is to be perfectly certain that there is no alternative to the will of God, or we could say the will of love. Perfect certainty. You may not yet realize that this is your only goal, because many others still cloud your mind. I want this, I want that. Maybe one day I'll have something else, or maybe I'll be able to hang out with these people because the people at Namaste are starting to drive me nuts. Whatever it is. But no other goal will bring you the joy that perfect certainty brings. I love that, perfectly certain. The goal which sets you free from the constraints of the ego and the chains that bind you to illusions. Yes, that's the key. Until now, you've chosen to believe, to have faith maybe, that God's will can be opposed. You believe that God's will could be opposed. There could be something else, an alternative, that there's an alternative to the peace of God. Belief in anything can be helpful as a first step, but it will never set you free. What the mind conceives of, which is faith or belief, can never set you free. Belief must, and it will absolutely, if you allow, shift into perfect certainty. But this is not something that you can force. You can't do it. It is a gift that is given to you when you decide, and here's the key, when you decide that there's nothing left in this world to distract you from it. There's nothing else you want but the perfect peace, the perfect certainty that God's will cannot be opposed. Love cannot be opposed. There is a tipping point. This is important, where the goals of the perceptual world begin to dissolve. That's what you're feeling. All of you, you're feeling the goals of the world beginning to dissolve. And the discomfort you feel when this happens cannot be underestimated. Let it be discomfortable or uncomfortable. That's okay. That's part of it. If you hold still within that discomfort and remain steady in your single desire, perfect certainty will prevail, and you'll begin to see everything anew. You'll begin to see everything in a new way. It will be like opening your eyes for the first time. What appeared dark and indistinct a moment ago comes into perfect focus. Perfect focus. And once the real world is truly known, you'll never be able to close your eyes again. Never being able to close your eyes again is what perfect certainty is. It is the shift from belief to knowing. I know it now. I've seen it. I've had the experience. That's why here at Namaste Village, we always talk to the experience, not to the intellectual discovery or the ideas, but just relax into the experience of love. And we live in community, so we can do that easily, even when we're challenged, because challenges do arise. But that's the opportunity to allow perfect certainty to shift from the belief or the desire or the wanting. There's nothing left to want, but there is everything to discover within that experience of certainty. Let's just take a deep breath for a moment. And before Vicky comes on, let's see if we can sense the approach. Even if it's just like smelling a flower before that flower is actually in our presence. You can feel the approach because of the scent. See if you can feel the approach now of perfect certainty. And so in gratitude, we welcome. In thankfulness, we affirm. We say yes to the approach of this holy state of certainty, knowing that God's will cannot be opposed. Love cannot be opposed. We may be able to block, but it doesn't change what love is and the fact that I am that. I am that love. It's not about place or space. It's always about grace. And we affirm that now. Amen. So, Victoria, we're going to let you take us even higher.
Okay, Brother James, I'm ready. So I hope you can see these beautiful flowers. They were the scent you mentioned, and how delicate they are, and how varied the variety. And I just found out about this, there's a lovely woman right here in Quincy, Massachusetts, who has a very little modest home, but has love in her heart to give away. And one day after another, she found herself just planting flowers in her front yard. And today she has a magnificent garden all around her house for cutting for all these kinds of wildflowers, wild, I don't know what they call them, but all kinds of family flowers. And therefore literally giving away. And she invites people to come and take whatever she wants. And on a couple of days during the summer and the spring and the fall, she has specific days where her whole yard is full of bouquets for people to come and take. Now this is an example. She doesn't talk about any religion or spirituality whatsoever, but this is an example of the presence of grace and love in this sister's heart. And it just falls out of her, so much so that she ended up renting a room for all her things that she needs for having this magnificent garden. But the reason I wanted to say it, and I'm so happy to show you the flowers, it's again the synchronicity. I met a friend, an old friend who I haven't seen in years, who's just starting to do the course again. And she gave me these flowers. And she asked me a question. And she said, but how do you know it's guidance? How do you know it's grace? How do you know it's the voice of love? And I thought, wow, isn't that perfect? Because that is what isn't that what we all want to know? And my answer is exactly how I live it. And I just wanted to share it with you because not all of us hear a voice. I certainly don't. I'm the most ordinary of us. I don't hear voices. I don't see mystical things. I don't experience light or zaps coming and going. I have none of that. But what I have is the prompt of my heart. And that's what I go by. I don't know how to hear another kind of voice, but the voice of love comes simply as a prompt in my heart to go here, there, yes or no. And all I do is I do listen by stepping back. That practice of the pause is really helpful, because if I step back a moment and I really open, like, what is it? I mean, even like, what should I wear today? What should I drink today? I do it for everything because it's a game for me. It's like it's a way of living that becomes very childlike. Like, what's fun today? And I just feel the prompt of my heart. And whether it was to live here where I'm living, or whatever situation I've ever done, I just let that prompt of my heart be my guide. Oh, that's the Holy Spirit. That's the voice of love. That's guiding me. And the simple next thing is you take the next step. Now, this is where many of us, and I have too, have gotten stuck. But we're not stuck in taking the step. We're stuck in self-doubt. Don't have it. Let the doubt go. Follow the prompt of your heart. Take a step. And touch the door of the next step. If the door opens, open it and walk into the next step. That's as simple as it is. If it doesn't open, and James's example of going to the Ukraine and ending up in Poland was a great example. He has the prompt to go. So he takes the first step. He gets on a plane and leaves Mexico, takes a car and goes here, goes there, and every which way, cars broke down, this and that happened. So he stopped, you pull back. Oh, I guess that wasn't the step. And you take the redirection that comes through as the next prompt of your heart. So you take the step. Many of us have been derailed by self-doubt, and we don't take any steps and we end up paralyzed. This isn't about that. This is about being like a childlike kid that knows our parent, our father, our mother loves us. So what? We make a mistake, celebrate the mistakes. Take the next step. If the door opens, walk through it. If it doesn't, step back. Listen again. What's my next step? And take that next step. And your example of how Namaste is a living, breathing piece of heaven on earth for all of us, not just those that know of it, but everyone in time. This is an example of harnessing the energies of love and grace and one will, our one will to live out what's given us to do by the love and the joy of God, and live it out together. This is a little piece of patch of dirt in Mexico that just sings about God's love and grace. We're all of that, each one of us. And whatever is ours to do will come, but not if we don't take the next step. If the prompt comes to make a call, or the prompt comes to go here or there, it is up to us to take that step. Jesus says we have to be ready, willing, and able. We need to hear and we need to do. We are here to be active workers. We're here to integrate the voice of love as our own voice, and have the courage and the happiness and also the carefreeness to do it, to take it. If Barack is here because he had a prompt in his heart to come to Boston, for which I'm very eternally grateful. That's really how simple it is. And then here he lands in this beautiful room we see him in, taken care of and loved and given a home. Every one of us have prompts every day. The idea is trust them. And when self-doubt comes and say, oh no, that must not be it, just don't pay it no mind. Just, all right, is this what my heart feels? Let me try it. Take a step. That's it. Take the step. As we take the step, that's when we integrate love, not only into our mind, but that's when it reaches knowing. When James was talking about certainty, certainty doesn't come from reading 10 more books. Certainty doesn't come from listening to 10 more examples of other people following the prompt. Certainty comes from ourselves feeling a prompt of love and taking the step. So what if you fall down? So what if the door shuts in your face? That's all right. It was the prompt to take the next prompt. That's all. There's no loss. This is a win-win situation for all of us all the time. We really can afford to live here, carefree and careless of everything except the prompt for love. That's the only thing we want to stay attached to. Doesn't matter the form, what it looks like, where it's taking us. Who knows? The fulfillment of where it's taking us is in the taking of the step of that prompt in the now, right now. Amen, everybody. That's what I got to say. Follow your heart. Be careful and careless and trust. Put all your cares on Him that cares for us, because we are children of a King that loves and adores and cares for us in every which way. And it's time for us to let Him and let ourselves be loved and cared for and seen. Thank you, Brother James. Thanks, everybody. I love you.
There we go. Vicki, thank you. Thank you so much for reminding us that grace is everywhere. Love is in the air.
Yeah.
Love is I can't help it. Love is the essence of everything. Literally, maybe that's the best description or definition that we could ever have of the goal. Love is everywhere, this and every moment, if we would but attune to that. I look in the back and I see the lesson for the day from A Course in Miracles that says, now would I be as God created me. Now. There is no time but now to embrace that. You can't do it yesterday. You can't do it tomorrow. It's now. Now, the choice to be as God created me, whole, perfect, complete, as opposed to the ego's version of that, which is very different. And the feeling, guess which one feels better? It's not even a comparison to the joy and the openness and the vibrancy of that love and that step into grace that comes when I simply allow myself to be as God created me, whole and holy and wholly lovable. So let's just sit for a moment once again and feel the approach of that holy love. And so with complete confidence, we claim this now. Listen to these words one more time. Your only goal now is to be perfectly certain that there is no alternative to the will of God. Perfect certainty. This is what we claim today. We can't force it, but we can receive it. It's always being offered if we would but choose to accept. And today's the day. Now would I be as God created me. Amen. And we will leave it right there in that holy silence, in that sacred breath, the heaven that we never left. And so it is. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
Well, that was pretty good.
I love you.
Happy
Namaste.
You.
I love you all. Thank
Namaste.
you.
Bye.
Thank